Hi and welcome to Hacker's Reef. Today I'm going to show you how easy it is to hatch your own brine shrimp. These little guys make a great treat for your fish, and it's really interesting just to watch them develop and grow. Even if you've already hatched some brine shrimp, be sure to stay tuned because you might learn some tips you didn't know about. Welcome back. We're actually going to be using a kit that's going to make the process even easier. You can find one of these kits on many websites. We'll have a link in the description, as well as most likely your local fish store. While the kit's not required, it takes a little bit of the guesswork out of your first time hatching brine shrimp. I find it helpful for a little bit over $10, and it's reusable, so you'll be hatching brine shrimp for years to come. The kit includes almost everything you'll need, but you are going to have to get a 2-liter bottle. Once you get your bottle, you're going to have to cut the base off of it like we did here. Make sure your bottle's nice and clean without any residue on it, and save that base because it's going to come in handy later. Now let's check out the contents of the kit itself. The main attraction in here is going to be this plastic base. It's going to help and make sure that your hatchery doesn't tip over. It's pretty sturdy, and it also has this little rubber gasket inside that should hopefully prevent any leaks. And then when you look at the bottom, the air line just plugs right into that little hole there that's kind of hard to see on the video. It's just important that you have this little red gasket seated flat. That works just like your garden hose to stop it from leaking. It also comes with an air line, which is nice of them to include, as well as an instruction sheet that outlines the procedure. It's pretty basic stuff. It all fits on one page. Just give it a quick glance, or it's useful for reference. Last but definitely not least, we have our packets that include our brine shrimp eggs as well as the salt. It's a little more cost effective to make your own salt water and then put the eggs in separately, but it's really hard to beat the convenience of being able to just cut open a packet and then have instant brine shrimp in a couple of days. You literally just need half a liter of dechlorinated water, and then you go ahead, dump it in, and that's all there is to it. Once you're more comfortable with the process, you can go ahead and buy a vial of replacement eggs. Assembling the hatchery is really easy too. All you take is your 2-liter bottle that you make sure is very clean, and as I said before, you just cut off the base. Make sure there's no sharp edges because they could always cut you if you're not careful. Now remember, we wanted to keep the base that we cut off because it's helpful to keep contaminants out of your hatchery. The most important thing is to make sure if you had a little plastic ring around your bottle that you carefully remove it. I say carefully because if you jack up the threads with a knife or something, it's not going to seal right and it'll most likely leak on you. You get rid of that just because you want the bottle to screw in flush against the gasket on the bottom. Now we're ready to fill it up with water and start the hatching process. Now it's halfway filled up with water, and we attached our air line to the base because remember there's a hole at the bottom and we don't want it to leak out of that. And then we have our lid that's going to help keep dust and other contaminants out. It fits on top nice and easily while still allowing the air to exhaust out. Just don't jam it in there like you're trying to load a cannonball into a cannon. And then we just take our packet of eggs. Again, the great thing is it contains the eggs and the salt. Everything's nice and pre-measured for half a liter of water, which makes it so much quicker to just dump it in. Some instructions you'll read say that you should use a little bit of baking soda. The reason behind that is to help stabilize the pH, but it doesn't seem like that's much of an issue with these packets, so I'd skip it. It's important that you use dechlorinated water. I'm using water from my RO filter system. Another very important thing before we start is to check your air line and your air supply. Because I have my air pump on the same level as the hatchery for this video, water would be flooding into the air pump if not for this handy check valve. A check valve is really important, and you should make sure you install it correctly, especially if you're going to be using a multi-gang air valve like we have here. Now you notice the black airline doesn't have a check valve. That could cause the water to siphon back into the valve and contaminate everything else that's hooked into it. Letting something like that happen is a good way to crash whatever's connected to your air pump. So be sure you install your check valves correctly so you prevent the possibility of any water cross-contaminating. So while installing a check valve down there is helpful to protect the pump, it's not going to do anything for contamination. Make sure you check the arrow on your valve to be sure it's installed in the correct orientation, because that definitely does matter. If for some reason you don't really care if your water mixes up, you can get away with just installing one right down here like we said before to protect the pump. If you do end up going that route with a single air check valve, Make sure you rinse out your valves really good after you use them so there's no gunk buildup. But I'd still recommend using the single valve on each line. It's a lot safer and you don't have to worry as much. There's still another method you can use to stop any potential contamination, and that's just to take your pump and make sure it's higher than your water level. That'll work for a lot of people, but if you're like me and you move things around a lot, a check valve's a really cheap insurance policy. Now that I've finished nagging you about protecting your air supply, I think we're finally ready to get this show on the road and add in our packet. This isn't one of those packets that you can easily rip, so be sure you have some scissors around because the last thing you want to do is pop it open and shoot brine shrimp eggs all over the place. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut it open. I want to make sure that all the contents are at the bottom of the packet so we don't lose anything. And then all you want to do is just carefully pour it in. Make sure that you get everything out of the packet because, like I said, everything's nicely measured, so you don't want to waste anything and you'll get a really good hatch. So once you're sure you got everything out of the packet, just go ahead and put that aside. Now we have this mess over here, and we have our brine shrimp eggs which float to the top and our salt which settles to the bottom. Now don't go trying to stir anything, that's what we can use our air pump for to get everything nice and circulated. All you need to do is just go and adjust your air valve. My air valve's kind of stiff because it's really old, but yours will probably be a lot looser, especially if you have one of those newer screw type ones. You just want to get your air started nice and slow to get it going. That's definitely too much air. You don't want it to start blowing out of the top. If your water's too turbulent, you're going to blast your eggs out of the water and onto the side of the soda bottle. You're just aiming for enough flow to get that nice circular motion that you see now. It takes a little bit of practice to get the right flow, but once you get it dialed in, you'll have that nice current that mixes everything up and exchanges out the gas, keeps the water fresh, and it should give your eggs the best chance of hatching. Now, if you look at your hatchery, you'll notice that there's no more salt clumped up down there, and that saved us from having to stir anything. So go ahead and take your base that we kept for a lid. You can put that on. Now that we have our lid on, you want to make sure that the air can still get out, so it's not super tight on there, and that way it won't move around on you from the air pressure. And then you're done. That's all you had to do, and your hatchery is ready to go. You just need to put it in front of a light source. I keep mine next to my phytoculture. That way I can share the light source so it uses up less electricity. But any reasonable household light bulb or shop light will be more than sufficient to get the job done. Now, depending on the temperature, you'll have some fresh baby brine shrimp in about 24 to 36 hours. You want to use around the same temperature as your aquarium, so between like 78 to 82. Higher temperatures do make them hatch and grow faster. So with proper heat, proper light, and proper circulation, everything will pretty much work on autopilot until you're ready to harvest your brine shrimp. Hopefully you found this video helpful, and make sure you leave a comment below and let me know what you plan on using your brine shrimp for. The freshly hatched baby brine shrimp make a great nutritious snack for your really picky fish, or you could try to grow them out to have a self-sustaining colony of brine shrimp for yourself. Hit that subscribe button and make sure you follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter so you don't miss out on any updates about how our eggs hatched and what we're actually going to do with our brine shrimp. As always, hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time at Hackers Reef.